Yes. I hope you can all hear me. My name is Kwame Gonza. Once again, I'm back here. I'm supposed to be with my partner, Titi, from South Africa. This is a program where we do our weekly roundup. In this weekly roundup, we normally look at the events that have transpired within the Pan African world, in the all African continent, and all the other African world. I mean, what is happening with our people in the United States, and what is happening with our people uh, in the Caribbean and all of Latin America. So we are going to look at a few things that have happened on the continent, or I would rather say a lot of things which have happened on the continent, not only a few things. There's a lot that is going on in the continent that warrants our attention as Africans. When you choose to be an African or a Pan Africanist, what many call a Pan Africanist, when you choose to be that kind of person, that means it is someone who is in love with the continent, its people, and you wish well for this continent. So that is what simply it means to be a Pan-Africanist. Being a Pan-Africanist is not some far-fetched ideology or something. Pan-Africanism is not some far-fetched ideology from somewhere. It's not some ism or like capitalism or socialism or something or anything like that. It is just about loving our continent and loving its people and wishing well for the people on the continent. So that is what we are about here with the weekly roundup updates from the African world. So that is what we are here to do. Let me straight away I start by greeting my brother Titi, who was not able to be here, and greetings to my sister Titi. My sister, of Connect Africa. An organization I've been working with, Mallet, and all the other comrades around the African world who are in this struggle, definitely, of liberating the African continent. The Uhuru movement, the Economic Fighters League of Ghana, the Kwame Nkrumah Ideological Institute, the No More movement, Say No More movement, which has rebranded, to continue in the struggle of protecting Ethiopia, and the EFF, Economic Fighters, Freedom Fighters of South Africa. All these organizations which are making a contribution towards building a new Africa, because we understand that the last dispensation, this dispensation which we are in is a dispensation that is fading away. And therefore, this requires a new breed of leaders to take the continent to the next stage of development. So I would start by greeting those important people and all the other important African governments that are making a contribution towards the total liberation and unification of the African continent. In the news, there was a couple of news today, and I'll start by summarizing what happened on the continent, and I'll touch a little bit about a few things that happened outside that still affect the continent and still affect the African people in all our, capacities, the male and the female, the young and the old, and all that. There was elections in Angola. Those elections are still not completed. And in these elections, definitely MPLA has been leading, and the president, Lourenço, is likely to come back to power for, a second term as the president of Angola. So MPLA has been winning that side. We have the elections which happened in Kenya. Definitely also was a very, very important, a feature of what happened, on the continent during the week. And President Ruto managed to come out as the winner. even though there is still some controversy surrounding the victory. President Ruto is a 55-year-old gentleman who's young and has been the deputy president to the current president or the outgoing president, President Uhuru Kenyatta. And then we had a situation also in Ethiopia. There's a lot of things going on in Ethiopia. And if you hear us talking about Ethiopia, one of these days talking a lot about Ethiopia is because Ethiopia is the administrative capital of the African continent. Addis Ababa is where the African Union headquarters is located. So that is the administrative capital of the African continent, and it is the aviation capital of the African continent, because that is where we have the largest airline company, which is Ethiopian Airlines. Big up to Ethiopia Airlines and all the work they are doing on the continent. So we have this city, this important city, Ethiopia. The historical city is the administrative capital of Africa, and at the same time the aviation capital of the African continent. So there was allegation by the UN saying that the TPLF rebels who are fighting in the north against, who are rebelling against the government in Ethiopia, that they came and stole fuel from the United Nations headquarters, which is suspicious considering that the UN has been in this position before. In 2021, when it claimed that the TPLF came and stole trucks, 300 trucks, and they were untraced. Those trucks were untraced. So the United Nations looks like is in the same position even today, trying to carry out destabilization in Ethiopia. And I think that the Ethiopian government need to come up to some measures. And there was also a visit by General Muhoz. He's called General David Muhoz, who's the General Muhoz, who's son to President Museveni. He visited Ethiopia, and there was conclusions as to the cooperation between Uganda and Ethiopia, which is also very important for the continent. Now we talk about Ethiopia very much, like I said, is because this is the administrative capital of the continent, and that is where the headquarters of the African Union is located. So at the same time, Ethiopia was able to launch, and complete the filling, the third phase of filling the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, which is supposed to be a dam that is going to power a lot of industrialization, the industries that have been springing up all over the industrial parks that Ethiopia has been creating. And then also to sell some of the power, to Kenya. Kenya signed contracts with the Ethiopian governments to be able, Kenya signed the contracts with the Ethiopian government to be able to buy some of the energy that will come from the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. And this is simply because this power will be cheaper. And Kenya also is embarking on, a journey of industrialization. It has a lot of industries, a lot of ICT, a lot of things are going on in Kenya. We know that it is the industrial and economic powerhouse of the East African region. So that is something that we should take note of. China also, on the outside, came out to forgive Africa some debts. China said that it will choose about 17 to 19 countries on the African continent, which are low-income countries, and then it will be able to forgive those countries their debt. And this is something that has been spoken about in the past, even by some of the groups we can call hypocrites. Those hypocrites who have not, forgiven Africa, who have been exploiting Africa for a very long time. I'm talking about the UN, the IMF and the World Bank. They don't forgive Africa debts, and they give Africa unfavorable debts, which debts have in turn been investment. They are not actually been debts to them. They have been investments where they have taken more than they have given to the African continent, because the debt is meant to enhance the receiver of the debt. But if that debt is in turn is impoverishing, then that is not a debt anymore. That is an investment or a means of exploitation. So that is what we have been seeing for the past 50 years, ever since Africa regained or gained its independence politically from these colonial exploitative countries of the West, like Europe and all of those countries which are bent on colonizing Africa. Now let us go back to MPLA. MPLA won its election, definitely, as we are seeing on the screen. It was able to secure victory, outright victory. The movement for the liberation of Angola has been in power for nearly, some say, 5 decades. 5 decades. That's 50 years. So the ruling movement for the liberation of Angola, which is MPLA, they say is the one which is leading in the elections. If you look at the election results which came out on Thursday, by the National Electoral Commission of Angola, 33% of the votes have already been counted, and it has been observed that MPLA, which is the movement, people movement for the liberation of Angola, has really garnered about 60% of that vote. Okay, 60% of that vote, almost 61% of that vote. And the UNITA, which is the National Union for the Total Independence of Angola, which is UNITA, received only 33%, and that is the second run-up. That's the first run-up or the second, party, to the competition. In this neoliberal dispensation era, we normally have like a two-horse race whereby only 2 parties are normally contending in the country, and the rest are normally relegated to being far off, in gaining only 1%, sometimes 2%, sometimes only 0.1% and stuff like that. So more than 14 million Angolas registered to cast their ballots, and MPLA, which has led the country since gaining independence in 1975, has gone on to lead the country, and has gone on, to guide the country in all types of, development and all kind of ways, whereby the MPLA is the one which helped the country, to start mining oil, and then engage into the idea of being an exporter of oil in the country. So that is what is happening with Angola, that the elections are going on and they have not been concluded, but so far President Lourenço is predicted to come back to power. The second news which we have is that President Ruto, also of Kenya, there was an election in Kenya. And in that election, President Ruto emerged. William Ruto was able to emerge out as the winner of the election, and he is the one who was announced by the ICBC. I think it's called ICBE, the what you would call the electoral body, the body responsible for elections in the country in the country of Kenya. So William Ruto, we know him, is a 55-year-old gentleman who has been vocal when it comes to African affairs. He's a very strong African, and he has been also the deputy president to to the outgoing president, Uhuru Kenyatta, even though they fell out to some level. They fell out for certain reasons, and President Ruto started supporting Raila Odinga in this election, which is just completed. But Raila Odinga, nevertheless, was able to lose an election to William Ruto, and William Ruto managed to come out as the winner. And I am really happy about this, to be honest. And I expected this to be a contentious, election, and to be a hard one for William Ruto. But it is even surprising for me that someone who was not supported by the existing president, like what happened during the election of Donald Trump, someone who was not supported by the president is the one who won. The existing president is the one who won the election. During the election of Trump, he was contending with Hillary Clinton, but President Obama was supporting Hillary Clinton as a successor, but Trump was able to overcome him. So this is the situation which we are seeing even here, that William Ruto was able to overcome Raila Odinga, who was being supported by, President Uhuru Kenyatta. So I find this election to have been fair myself, and I think that the Electoral Commission, or the electoral body of Kenya, has done really a good job. But Raila Odinga has decided to go to court and claim that this election, which was declared, was not fair. And I think that is his right under the constitution, the current constitution. I say current because we believe that Africa has to unify, and that means we have to run a new constitution on the African continent. So under the current Kenyan constitution, Raila Odinga has the right to go to the courts and contend, the Supreme Court, High Court, and whatever court they may have, and contend and contest the elections and give his evidence, which he thinks that the election is not right. But Raila Odinga, we know, is being a veteran in Kenyan politics, and he's an old gentleman. I think he needs to rest. From the look of things, when he was campaigning, it looked to me that he was somebody who was really tired. He would not be able to keep up with the pace, of changes that are happening today. And someone as young as 55, as President Ruto, a lot of energy, I think is someone who's strong enough and able to deal with the demands of what the presidency brings, compared to someone who is approaching his 80th year, somebody who's in his 70s and is almost turning 80. So we really need some young energy on the continent. We need people like William Ruto, not only needing him or people like him, but we need people like him who are Pan-African in outlook, okay? People who love this continent, and not only loving the continent, it is not enough to love the continent, but rather want this continent to be unified into a single state, a continent built on the ideas of our forefathers, people like the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed of Ethiopia. I believe that they will be able to understand each other very well. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and President William Ruto, because they are around the same age group, they will be able much more to understand themselves than having a very, very, veteran and politician in the seat of that country, and who has moreover been at the helm of this country, the running of the politics of the country. So that is very important that President Ruto has was able to win the elections in Kenya. And I think we would say congratulations to President Ruto. He should go out there to the courts and try to wrestle it out so that he can legitimize himself, even though he has already been legitimized by the electoral body. Now, there is another thing which happened on the continent. In the UN claimed that the Tigray forces in Ethiopia the UN claimed that they came and store, fuel. Okay, the UN claimed that the Tigray forces came and store fuel from its headquarters. Okay, from its headquarters, and then around, or more than 500,000. Okay, they store more than 500,000 liters of fuel. That is the Tigray, the TPLF. They came and stole that fuel. That is what the UN claims today. But in the past, the same UN had claimed that the same UN had claimed that these Tigray forces had taken trucks. Actually, the UN did not say they took the trucks in 2001, around, I think, the month of November. Starting, no, it was not November necessarily, but it was 2001. I remember it could be around May or somewhere there. But the UN claimed that the Tigray, it took trucks with aid into the Tigray region, and those trucks disappeared. We are talking about trucks, for delivering aid, and we are talking about not a few trucks, but we are talking about 300 trucks which disappeared. Okay, 300 trucks disappeared, in the Tigray region. So that is what 300 trucks disappeared. Disappeared. I'm trying to look for that article. In Tigray. So I'm trying to look so that you can see for yourself. I don't want to say things. I don't want to say things, and then we will say he's trying to cause some form of propaganda. Propaganda. We don't want propaganda over here. We want to bring real credible news. We want to bring credible news to our people and understanding, because our work is to edify the people, not to cause some form of propaganda. We are not here to cause propaganda. We are here, to bring real news to the African people so that they can make informed decisions. We want African people to make informed decisions. So the UN claimed that the Tigray forces came and stole more than 570,000 liters of fuel and went to use it. But the same UN in the past, in 2001, had claimed that it took 80 trucks under the World Food Program into Tigray, and 300, okay, not actually only 300, but more than 300 trucks disappeared. And you can see that this news came up in September of 2021. This news appeared on Al Jazeera, for example, in September of 2021. So this is the nature of the UN that we are dealing with, and the Ethiopian government and administration in Addis Ababa has been complaining about the activities of the UN, because from the look of things, the UN has not looked like an organization which is working really to enhance or to bring stability, peace and stability, but rather the UN is looking more like a propaganda machine, a propaganda vehicle, which is meant to help advance the interests of the neo-colonialists. And when I'm talking about neo-colonialists, I'm talking about the colonial countries, who are the United States and European countries, Canada, Australia, and all those combined. So it claims that they store, 570,000 liters of fuel from the World Food Program. Is the same World Food Program warehouse. So it's the World Food Program. If you look at the picture I showed last time, the picture which I showed on the trucks which disappeared is the same World Food Program, which said that the trucks disappeared. More than 300 trucks disappeared. But the Ethiopian government has continued to be lenient and allow the UN to operate in the country, even though the UN itself should be banned from the country and is destabilizing the place. It's not helping the country, yet it is claiming that it is giving aid. So it is an intricate situation which the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed of Ethiopia has handled with a lot of care. But credit to him for being able to handle this situation with a lot of wisdom. But personally, I think that the United Nations need to be stopped, and the activities of what it is doing need to be handed over to a body which is African. Bodies like the East African Community, IGAD, ECOWAS, and all these bodies, they should be the ones to handle this situation, because the corruption that is within the UN right now is unacceptable. I remember last year, even I think it was this year, when Elon Musk asked the UN to give accountability of what is required so that he can give them 4 billion. They would not even give accountability. They would not give how they're going to spend $4 billion, because they were claiming that $4 billion would solve the hunger problem in the world. And Elon Musk, asked them to give how they are going to spend that money and how it is going to solve the hunger problem, so that he can so that he can sell some of his stock in Tesla and give the money to the United Nations to solve the hunger problem. They never turned up to give accountability, because they don't like accountability. So the corruption within the UN is unacceptable, to the African people. Is beyond what is acceptable. Is beyond the levels that are acceptable on the African continent. Yeah, so that is news which happened in Ethiopia, and is very important for us to understand what is going on in that country, because we said Addis Ababa is the administrative and aviation capital of the African continent. So it is imperative and it is very important that we as African people pay attention to what is going on at the headquarters, where the African Union is situated. In addition, there was also a claim that the Ethiopian government has attacked the Tigray forces, because this issue came up of blaming TPLF for the actually not only blaming the TPLF, but blaming the TPLF and the United Nations for conniving to destabilize the country, and together with the imperialistic countries, the United States, Europe, Canada, and all those NATO countries who have been destroying the world and bombing the world and killing numerous people, millions and millions of people. So there was that blame that TPLF should be held accountable, the United Nations should be held accountable. Now they want to shift the blame and put it on the Ethiopian government, and they came up with some false news that the Ethiopian government has been bombing Tigray, which was really false news, like what we see happened in Iraq before they attacked Iraq, what happened before they attacked Libya. But this is something that the African people have been able to figure out and understand, that this is false news. This thing has happened before, and we understand what has happened in the past, and we will not fall for this fake news that is being spread by what Trump called fake news media, fake media. President Trump in the United States has been saying that this is fake media, and mainstream media like France 24, BBC, CNN, New York Times, these are all fake media, like how President Trump has been saying, who are only interested in advancing neo-colonial and colonial interests. And not only that, the colonial interests of only a few ruling class in Europe and the United States, not the interests of the American people and the interests of the European people. So this is what we are seeing. The interests of the American people have been neglected. The interests of the European people have been neglected, and only the ruling class. So the people in Europe, the citizens in Europe and the citizens of the United States have a right to demand accountability instead of being distracted by external factors. China has the capability to deal with its own affairs. India has the capability to deal with its own affairs. Africa has the capability to deal with its own affairs. And all the other countries have the capabilities to deal with their own affairs. Russia has the capability to deal with its own affairs. Ukraine has the capability, and all the countries in the Middle East. So the ruling class in Europe and the US and Canada need to focus on the needs of the American people, not their need. So this is what we are seeing, that the American people and the European people are demanding that their needs be met instead of their ruling class and regimes, distracting them and going outside to destabilize the rest of the world and claim that they are working for them. So this is what happened, and is happening in Tigray today, that they are trying to destabilize Ethiopia by claiming that Ethiopian government is bombing, Tigray, so that we can, be distracted and not demand accountability from the United Nations and TPLF for the fuel that disappeared, and then also for the trucks that disappeared last year in the month of September, which are 300 trucks. And these many people, especially the Africans, have considered this as neo-colonial support to rebels who want to overthrow a democratically elected government. And this is unacceptable in the eyes of the Africans, and especially to a government which has proved itself to be Pan-African and African in orientation. I'm talking about the government in Ethiopia. So the other thing that happened is that Ethiopia was able to finish the filling of the third phase of its dam, the Ethiopian Grand Renaissance Dam, which we spoke about, and we have spoken about in the past. We have spoken about this dam because this dam represents really something very important on the African continent. And we have said in the past that that this dam not only will benefit Ethiopia, but it will benefit the whole region. And one of those things is that the dam, when it is going on and the filling is going on, Ethiopia was able to strike up deals and sign contracts with the Kenyan government regarding supplying some of the energy that will come from the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, supplying some of that energy to Kenya, because Kenya is industrializing rapidly. And just to give you a recap, this dam is one of the biggest in the world, 7th biggest in the world, and also is the biggest in Africa. And these are the type of infrastructures which Africa needs. These are the types of infrastructure which Africa envisioned the such infrastructure, in the long past. And Nkrumah spoke about building of dams, building of power systems. Building such infrastructure is very important for the African continent. Building high-speed trains, building our own aircraft. So these are the types of infrastructure which even Nkrumah envisioned in the 1963 speech which he gave during the formation of the Organization of African Unity. And those people who have not read that speech, which is very iconic, and even PLO Lumumba of Kenya, the prominent Pan-Africanist, has commented about that speech which Nkrumah gave in 1963. I need you guys to go out there and look for that speech on Google. Just Google it and you will get that speech. It was iconic, in which Nkrumah laid out the plan for the continent: industrialization, mining, looking for all the minerals on the African continent, even the Sahel. He spoke how we can make it green again, how we can plant new trees in the Sahel and remove that desert. How we can tap into the solar energy. So Nkrumah spoke all about these things. So this dam, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, represents what you would call the future Africa, or the Renaissance Africa, that the Africa we want, because we want Africa to be fully industrialized. We want Africa, that is functional. Okay, so Ethiopia was able to complete the filling of this dam. Just to give you a recap, we are watching the weekly African Roundup updates from the African world and what is happening around the continent. So, which is very, very important. It's very important for us to understand what is going on our continent. Yes, it is very, very important. Yes, so that is what is going on. Now, I'm about to round up, and I'll add a couple of other three things. Is that China has come out. China has come out to forgive some debt of some African countries on the continent, and it is saying that it will look at about, China said that it will look at about 17 to 19 African countries which are still low income countries, or LDC, low developed countries, and forgive their debt. And that debt is is projected to help these countries which are struggling with debt, which is very, very important for the African people. But unfortunately, it said that countries like Kenya and Tanzania, who have achieved the status of lower middle income, will not be part of that group that will be forgiven for that debt. But we all understand that Kenya has also stacked up a lot of debt from China. And as an African, I would encourage China, to include Kenya also and Tanzania, because if you are forgiving Africans, you are not forgiving governments, but you are rather forgiving Africans as a people, as a group of people who have a common destiny, who have the same struggles. So I would encourage the government of China, I would plead with the government of China to forgive all African countries for their debt, not only a few of them, not only 17 of them, but rather consider all the governments on the continent and reduce on their debt. That is very important out there that China has decided to do. And we want to commend China for that move. And we hear also that the IMF is also offering more loans on the continent, and we want to condemn that. That is really not a good move for the African continent, because in the past, the IMF and the World Bank, their loans have been a means of exploitation of the African people. And we know that countries like Egypt are still negotiating for loans, and they have taken almost 6 months negotiating with the IMF for these loans. And Egypt has looked at the loans and said the terms which they are attaching to the IMF loans are not favorable. That is why Egypt has been in this negotiation also for almost 6 months negotiating for loans, because it looks at these terms that the IMF is giving in, that they are similar to the past. They are only meant to exploit and not to help the people. They are only meant to enrich Europe and the United States and Canada and Australia, because these are the groups who are controlling the IMF. These loans are meant to enrich the European ruling class and enhance white supremacy at the expense of the African people. So Egypt has been standing up against this and rejecting this, because it looks at this as a continuation of United snakes, or United States domination of the African people and colonialism. So I commend Europe, and I condemn, those loans that are being given by the IMF and the World Bank for the continued exploitation of the African people on the African continent in general. So the United States and Europe have continued to decline. Their economies have continued to decline, and economies have, as they have predicted, that China would overtake. When we are looking at GDP, when you're looking at power purchase, China has overtaken the United States as the biggest economy. Definitely, it overtook it, and Europe and the West, they are struggling. Their parasitic nature, they are struggling to overthrow, to throw off their parasitic nature, whereby they have been depending on other people's resources. As we know, the United States is only 5% of the population of the world, but has been consuming 25% of the resources of the world. And this means you are a parasite, because it is unsustainable. You cannot continue to depend on the resources of others. It is not sustainable. You have to depend on your own resources. So this has led to massive death, millions of deaths in the Middle East, millions of deaths in Asia, millions of deaths in Africa itself, in Congo, in death in Rwanda, death in Nigeria, Biafra. All these are wars which are engineered to make the West richer, while Africa is, embroiled in quagmire and destabilization and disorganization. But these are things which we have to fight against as Africans. I want to say thank you to all the movements out there. No More movement, Say No More. Once again, the Economic Fighters League of Ghana, the Uhuru movement, the African people, the African People Socialist Party, which are fighting on the front to rescue, connect Africa. My sister Marlet, I would like to greet you, and all the other movements that are fighting for the liberation of the African continent. We are saying that we are working on certain petitions that have been endorsed by the PLO Lumumba Foundation and other prominent Pan-Africanists, and I will put a link down into this section for you to look out for signing these. We are looking for 1 million to petition the African Union for a union government. Number 2, the second petition, a single passport and a single currency for all Africa. We need still 1 million for the petitions. Number 3, we need, a single military and the stoppage of wars on the continent, starting with the war in Cameroon, where France was and supporting a murderous government of Paul Biya, an more than 80-year-old man who cannot rule the country anymore. And it is France, it is in fact France which is in control in Cameroon and murdering our people and killing our people. So we need a single military, and we need your support in signing these petitions. And like I said, these petitions have been endorsed by the PLO Lumumba Foundation, Dr. Susan Dr. Susan, Pan-African Daily TV, Dr. Edmund Folfak, okay, and Sister Shanice of the Sister Shanice Show. You can find her on YouTube and subscribe to her channel also. In the same way, you should subscribe to Connect Africa. These are very important organizations that are fighting on the front. Economic Fighters League, like I said, Economic Freedom Fighters of South Africa. All these organizations, Pan-African Congress of Tanzania, Occupy Tanzania. These are organizations who are fighting on the front, and we need to support them. And like I said, the Uhuru movement, the African People Socialist Party needs to be supported as an ideological engineer, okay, for the movement, for the liberation, as a vanguard party for the liberation of the African people. So we need to work together. So I'll put it in the comment section. It has been nice hanging out with you. Thank you so much, and greetings to all African people around the world, those in the United States, those in Latin America and the Caribbean, those who want to participate, those African people who want to update the African world on what is happening, and especially those in the US and the Caribbean, and you want to participate in this show, just send me a message, leave your contact down in the comment section, and I will reach out to you so that we can have a conversation on how you can contribute, on how we can collaborate, and then we update the African world what is happening. The information and technology has been democratized, so there's no reason why we should hold back, from using this information and informing our people about what is happening in Mali. Like recently, Mali has been, strong in condemning and fighting off French interference in the Sahel, which is a very good sign. We encourage the government in Mali, and a couple of other governments like the one in Burkina, Guinea. So we want to thank those progressive African governments, in Zimbabwe, who have held the fort on the front. We want to say this is a beautiful thing that you are doing. The next phase is for you to unify your efforts, to unify your forces, so that you can fight for the whole African continent. Unify your forces and unify it with the African people, so that you can fight on the front and dispel and expel imperialism from the African continent. That is the only way we know that we will be able to grow and advance as African people. Thank you so much, all the people who are watching. Like I said, sign the petitions and support the movement. My name is Kwame Gonza. I'm out of here, and see you next time. Africa must unite. Africa must unite. Africa must unite. Be blessed.